welcome to the winter session of Ironman 2020 that we've entitled Not If, But When. I don't know when the last time you ever thought about this, but considering there's 7 billion people on the planet, everyone has a different DNA, personality, abilities, likes, dislikes. And so we're incredibly different. And yet at the same time, there are things that every human being is going to experience. Failure, worry, temptation, loss, whatever it might be. So as different as we are, we're very much the same. So the reality is, in life, it's not if we're all going to face a lot of the same things, even as different as we are, but when are we going to face them? And that's what this 8-week session is going to be all about. We're going to take a look at a number of different realities that every human being, no matter how different they might be, is really going to have to face and deal with, and how we can do it well based on a right kind of foundation. I hope you'll go on the journey with us. It's going to be a terrific ride. Hey, listen, I want to give a special welcome to all the guys that are new. We've got a number of guys that are new tonight, and and we're going to have more guys in the next week. It's just the way things happen the first few weeks, and so we're just learning in this, and we'll keep building more tables in if we need to, or filling things up. There's some guys, obviously, that couldn't be here this week. And I also want to say this, guys can come at any point in the session, so just know that if guys are wondering. But I really want to just remind us again as we start out what we're doing here, because this is really, really important. And I want you to know this. When we come into a room like this, there are a lot of stories in here. There's a story for every man that's in this room. And some of us, some of our stories we might feel are a bit more colorful than other people's stories. It really doesn't matter. I just want to say this. You are absolutely welcome wherever you're at in your life and in your journey. We know that some of you guys might have felt like you've been on this faith train for 40 years or more. Some of you are just sniffing at the front door going, I don't know if I get this. I don't know if I want to get this. I got a lot of questions. In fact, maybe I was even burned by this thing at one point in time. We just want you to know you can bring all of that. It's welcome here, as long as there's a spirit in your heart to really want to learn and grow as a person. Because that's what we're committed to. Let me just say this again. This crazy thing that we're doing, there's a group this size and even a little larger on Thursday mornings that's going to be in this room Thursday morning. This thing started as just a group of about 8 or 9 young men 17 years ago meeting at Bob Evans right down the road. And I asked a group of guys that they would meet to think a little bit more intentionally about your life. Because here's what I know. This is why it's called Ironman. The Ironman race is an endurance race of 140.6 miles that you do in one day. But rarely do people think about their life being an endurance race that's 40, 50, 60, 70, or 80 years. And most people think a whole lot more just about getting through life as opposed to the life they're actually living. I'll give you an illustration of that. If we went down to Basta Pasta, the restaurant, and we just walked around. I said, hey, everybody here, let me just give you a deal. I'll give you $75 for anybody that can go home and come back within an hour with your retirement plan or some version that you thought about your finances down the road. You guys think some people could do that? Yeah. If I said, I'll tell you what, I'll up it significantly. We'll give you $500 if you can go home and come back with some little piece of paper that shows the type of footprint that you want to leave when your run on planet Earth is up. That you've actually written it down, you've actually thought about it, you've actually given it some energy. Because here's what I know. A lot of people just live their life without ever taking time to consider the life they're actually living. And so your life and my life is an endurance race. So here's what we're trying to do here. I have no interest in just meeting to meet. I really don't. Like, this thing's meant to bring life change. So if you're looking just for a Bible study, this probably isn't the right room. But we're going to study the Bible. We're going to use the Scriptures, as you'll see tonight. But the reason I say that is, I know that sometimes people study the Bible and they don't think about, how do I get what I just studied into my life? Some people never studied the Bible, and we don't want to scare guys away. We want people to be welcome here wherever you're at. But we're going to take a look at our character. we're going to take a look at life change. So if you're married, we'd like your marriage to kind of go up a few notches. Hopefully you'd be a little more engaged, a little better at this thing. If you have kids, whatever stage you are, I got 3 adult kids. I'm not done being a dad. I'm just in a different phase of being a dad. But I'm not done being a dad. You know, if you're a dad, you're always a dad. You guys know that, right? How about a friendship? Like, we all can be better and experience more, I believe, of what we've been created for. So we want to be about restoring hearts. We want to develop these catalytic friendships. Some of you are wondering, why are we sitting around tables? I mean, like, this is crazy. Here's why. Because men are a lot better at relationships than some of us pretend to be, and we're made for them. And here's what I know. Men also tend to isolate the older they get. They don't have more friends. They tend to have fewer. And so you're around tables to begin to hopefully build some friendships with some guys that you can really walk through life again with each other a little bit. And some guys have done that in this room. If you've got a table and you think, this doesn't really fit as much for me, find another table. Don't quit coming. Like, it wasn't for me. Like, what wasn't for you? You haven't been here long enough to know if it's for you. Like, give it more than 1 week. So here's what I'm saying. The other thing is, this group of men, some of you who are new don't realize, there's been an amazing impact out of men in this room and in Thursday morning. In this community, in people's lives, they've touched a lot of people's hearts. And some amazing things have happened just out of these friendships. And I really believe this, that we're just on the front end of a lot of things that might just happen in the future. So I'm really grateful you're here. I'm just a representative of all these table leaders that we have numerous. We have a little core team that thinks about this. This isn't my thing. This is our thing. I need to be here, and I want you to hear this. I need to be here as much as any of you need to be here. I look forward to these times. It's life-changing. And in the role that I play, I will be as vulnerable as I feel is appropriate for me to be with the people that I might end up sharing about. Usually it's my family. So, you know, you guys come up to my wife one time and go, hey, you know, Pat told us about, Goody told us about this. It'd be good if you asked me if that would be good to share with her. I've had that happen before, and it was a long ride home, trust me. So why this session? Here's the deal. We've entitled this session, not if, just when. Here's what I know. Every person in this room is different, aren't we? You have a different DNA. You have a different personality. You have different backgrounds. You have different abilities. You have different financial resources. You have different experiences. But yet here's what I know. Every one of us is more alike than we'd even care to imagine. Because every man in this room faces temptation, don't you? Or am I the only one? Every man in this room probably has faced failure or worry or loss, or needed guidance at some point in your life or in the future. Does that make sense? So here's the point. It's not if we need these things, it's just when. And we have a lot more in common, even in the midst of our differences. And so we're going to tee these things up. Here's what I'll say. You will get out of this time what you are willing to put into this time. If you come as a spectator, you'll get a spectator feedback. If you come as a participant, I really believe it might just be life-changing. And so I'm going to ask, as we have time around the tables, some of us like to talk a lot more than others. Some of us are enthralled with our own voices. And so I want to ask those of you that have no trouble doing that to certainly express your opinion, but just realize there's some other guys sitting around that might like to hear some other thoughts. And just be sensitive to that. There might be times that some of your tables are big, we might need to break down, or just you might want to take 3 or 4 of you and go stand somewhere else or go in another part of the building for a little bit, and I'll call you back together again. But we really want to have a chance to enjoy each other's presence. Make sense? So during your time at Table Talk, consider these 2 questions. Why do you think that some people tend to face life's realities and some of the hard knocks that might come their way better than others? What does it seem to be sort of their secret sauce, if you will? And secondly, how are you prone to cope when the heat of life gets turned up, or expectations aren't met, or something sudden happens that you didn't expect? Spend some time talking about that around your tables. All right, fellas, let's do this. Hey, we're going to have some more time. Just so you guys know, every week we are going to have at least one, maybe 2 times within each session to have a chance to gab and talk. This is really, really, really important. And there may be weeks where we spend way more time around the tables than anything else because this is important, what we're doing. And I already know that there's been some high levels of vulnerability. And I think that's really good. A friend of mine once said, you know, it's interesting how people think when they share their strengths, it builds connection. He goes, it really doesn't. It makes you competitors. What really makes you connected is when you share your vulnerabilities. I've rarely thought less of a person who was vulnerable because it takes a lot of strength and a little bit more being comfortable in your own skin to say, you know, I had a dream and it didn't work. I tried this and it failed. In fact, I did something crazy that even now when I think about it, it pains me. And somebody else could go like, hey, you're not the only one. Let me tell you what and there's a sense in which, yeah, so I get it. Like, you know, I know I didn't always get it right being a dad. I also know this, I didn't try to get it wrong. But I did. There's times I did. And so we'll keep talking about this. But here's what I'd love to do. I'd love to just for a minute to just kind of popcorn around the room real loud. Like, what did you kind of come up with initially that you kind of sense maybe if you got there enabled some people to just weather the realities and storms of life better than it just seems in a more life-giving way than other people? Yeah, Joel?
You know I can be loud. Anyway, definitely like what we're doing right now is with other people.
Okay.
Definitely, where we can communicate, like you said, our joys, our sorrows, celebrate, help commiserate together, just get it out, and have people say, hey, you're okay, I'm going through the same problem, and everything else. And that can really turn a day around to know that someone else cares.
Thank you. So a sense of community. Do you guys, that would certainly be in a category. Keep going. Anybody else? Just anything. Yeah.
Humility.
Humility. Wow. Humility. You know, I think it even takes humility to exist in community well. You know, you're not trying to control the community, you're a part of it, the friendship, and there's a sense of vulnerability to it, which is really good. That takes a sense of humility. Humility, just so we get this right, doesn't mean that you think less of yourself. It just means you think of yourself less. I heard somebody say that once. I didn't make that up. So if you say, man, you wouldn't believe what good he said. I didn't say it. Like you can't. Yeah, humility doesn't mean you think less of yourself. You just think of yourself less. Meaning, it's not like Paul talks about this in Philippians 2, where he says, don't merely look after your own interests, but also the interests of others. Like, I'm not the only person taking up space. It's not that humility isn't, I'm not worth anything, or you're worth more than me. That's just crazy thinking. And that's not even humility. That's like false pride. So it's just a different bird. We're not talking about, but anybody else, just keep going with this. Like some other things you feel maybe help people weather the storm. Yeah, you guys go ahead. Kevin, and then we'll go right here. Go ahead.
What are you anchored to?
Yeah, what are you anchored to? Yeah.
If you're anchored to God, you're able to not just slipping around all the time.
Yeah,
so
we're going to get to that a little bit. Anchored. Where are you anchored? You know, like, where are you tethered? You guys ever seen one of those tetherball things where you smack the ball and it kind of goes, yet it's still, you just feel like it would take off, but it just keeps going around the pole, and eventually it's still there. And then you smack it and it goes the other way, but it's still connected to the pole. I think sometimes in my life I felt like I'm the ball. And maybe you felt that way too. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's you, brother. Luke?
From biblical models, people who've endured suffering like Paul or David, and just seeing how they endured and made it through.
So you look at other people. You look at other, what did they learn from? And then, you kind of go deeper and you find out, well, what are they anchored to? Because one of the things we're going to see tonight is everybody has a bottom line. Every one of us in this room has got a bottom line. And it often takes the heat getting turned up to expose the bottom line. Here's what I know. A good friend of mine that I mentioned before was with Mother Teresa. Okay, and he was alone with her for a short period of time in a room. And he goes, Mother Teresa, tell me something that probably I won't learn anywhere else. Tell me something really, what advice would you have to give me? And here's this little lady from Albania that literally the whole nation of India lined the streets pretty much when she died. Like, you talk about impact, right? You think about anybody that you would think, okay, if anybody models a life well lived, that's her, no matter what your faith background is. So he asked this lady, Mother Teresa, this, and she looks at him, she goes, here's my thought. Something like this. She goes, there is no sin that I'm not capable of. He goes, what? He said, what? He said, there is nothing that I'm not capable of. Because see, when you never know what your breaking point could be either, right? Like, have you ever done something you never imagined you could do in your life? So do you ever think that could never happen again? I'm just telling you, there is a bottom line. How about a couple more? This is good. Anybody else want to share anything? Yeah, thank you.
At our table, we were talking about how sometimes the hardest times of your life can be the best times.
Yeah.
And I think when you go through those times in the storm, being able to say, at the end of this time, it's going to be one of the best times because God's going to tell you what you did wrong and how you can better yourself from that situation. And He forces you to abide to Him.
Wow.
And at the end of the road, it's a good thing for your life.
How about that wisdom from a young man, huh? He basically was saying, if you guys couldn't hear him, that sometimes some of your hardest times in your life are the best times because of what you learn, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but also because of what you can become and will become. That things are not easy, but how many of us have probably grown the most when it's been the toughest? I mean, every one of us in this room, but nobody wants to sign up for it. I mean, nobody does. It exposes all of us in different ways, which is huge. I want to show you a couple of pictures. Paul, can we throw a couple of these up? I just wanted you guys to see these for a minute. And you'll know a bit. Real slow, like, what do you guys, show another one, Paul, real quick. What do you guys show? What am I showing you pictures of? Yeah, foundations. Keep going. Just show another one. You know, right up the street, Whiting and Turner's building a building up there. I don't know what they're doing. They've been spending a heck of a lot of time playing in the dirt, as far as I'm concerned. And we'll find out why in just a little bit, huh? You see, Kaiser Permanente headquarters, new building, and I think they're really glad that Whiting Turner is spending a whole lot of time building that well. Right? Like you always go, get it up quicker, get the building up quicker, get the building up quicker. Like, here's the part. There's a reason why it takes so long. So here's what I'm asking of you guys, and I'm asking of myself, like, let's leave that up there for now, Paul, if we can. What's my foundation? What's the bottom line for us, right? The place that you kind of put your weight, if you will, of your concerns, the weight of your anxieties, the weight of your fears, the weight of your sadness, the weight of those things that maybe push it for you a little bit. Is it strong enough to withstand what life brings when it brings it? Because here's what I know that I found out, that not all foundations are the same. They're not. And life just helps uncover and expose, what the bottom line is. Here's two things that are certain in life. So if you have your scriptures, if you have your Bibles, or if you have a phone, or if you don't, just look on with somebody next to you. We're going to take a look at Matthew chapter 7. I just want to reiterate this again one more time. We're looking at the words of Jesus. I just want to, not to blow your minds or to create problems, but you guys know that Jesus wasn't, quote, a Christian. Jesus was actually a Hebrew rabbi who did not push Christianity, but he brought the kingdom of God. And this isn't a slam on anything. I just think it's really important for us to know what we're talking about when we're talking about it, because Jesus, I think today in some ways, if he was here, might even confront some of us, quote, me included, Christians, on some of our stuff like he confronted the Pharisees on some of their stuff. He might say, you need to unload on that. You're a little too tight on that. Where'd you come up with that? Why you keep trying to cram this reality in that hole? I mean, you're jacked up about that. You ought to really be jacked up about that. But here's what he did say in Matthew chapter 7, because here's two things that are certain in life. Storms and troubles and worthy and unworthy foundations that storms and troubles will expose. Two certainties in life. What? Storms and troubles, right? Do you guys believe that? And worthy and unworthy foundations that storms and troubles will expose. So Jesus said it this way. Let's look at Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. Therefore, Jesus said, everyone who hears these words of mine, and you can read back over Matthew 5, 6, and 7, which is known as Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, and puts those things that I've said into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rains came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its what? Where? On the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice, which I think you're free to do, you're just a foolish man. He says, who built his house on the sand, and the rains came and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. What's true about both these people? The storms came, the winds blew, and the tide rose, right? And one stood and one didn't because of what? What it was standing on. I'm going to share a couple things in a little bit. There have been a couple times in my life I knew nothing other than this. The biggest decision right now is where am I going to stand? Am I going to move or am I just going to keep my feet where they're standing right now? Because I can't see anything else other than that. Nothing else makes sense to me. Let's take a look at John chapter 16 real quickly. I just want to show you these things real quick. This is really great. John 16, verse 32. Give a little context. Jesus is just about ready. This is in his last week of his life, the last days. He's about ready to go to the cross. John chapter 16, verse 32, he says this. But a time is coming and has come when you will all be scattered, looking to his disciples, each to his own home. Get this. You've been with me now for 3 years, but now he says this. You will leave me what? All alone. Wow. Like I'm getting ready to go to the cross. I need a friend. The guys that you were with me, now you guys are all going to scatter. You're going to leave me alone. What's his next thing that Jesus says though? Yet I am what? Not alone. For my Father is with me. Isn't that great? There have been times, and again, where the only thing I've known is, God, I'm going to trust that you're with me. That's all I got. And then he goes on and says this, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, I have overcome the world. Let's look real quickly, just a couple more verses. Let's look back, go to the left. Let's look at Psalms, chapter 18. Okay? Psalm 18. I just want us to hear these truths and let us wash over us for a little bit. Psalm 18, 1-6. David is writing this. This is really cool because, as you know, Saul was constantly after David trying to kill him. He just wouldn't leave him alone. And David writes this in response, I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge. He is my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call to the Lord who is worthy of praise, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death, get that, the cords of death entangled me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called to the Lord. I called to my God for help, and from his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. Look at verse 30, 31. As for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is flawless. He is a shield for all who take refuge in him. For who is God besides the Lord? And who is the rock except our God? What do you hear David saying about God? He's his bottom line. He's his bottom line. If I were to ask you guys, what makes a good foundation, what would you say? Some of you are in the construction business too, so this place. Yeah, Bob?
Gotta make sure you're starting with level ground.
Okay. Make sure the ground's level.
Bedrock.
Bedrock. What do you mean by that, Kev? Bedrock.
Go right down to where there's complete stability and nothing soft underneath.
Nothing, it's got to be strong. It can't move. It can't go further down. Is that what you're saying? Like, this thing is about as strong as it's going to get right there. Anybody else? That's good. Yeah.
The right materials.
What's that?
The right materials.
It's the right material.
The right materials.
Yeah. Right material. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that just a little bit more for us non-construction guys?
Well, the actual elements you're going to use to construct your foundation. Once you've established your base,
Yeah.
then what you're going to use to actually build it upon that.
Okay.
Just like that.
Yeah, you're not using balsa wood. You know what I mean? Like Whiting Turner up here is using some real stuff. Yeah, Jasper, you.
Well, we're talking about three little pigs,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, 3 little pigs, right? Huff and pluff and blow your house down, right? Yeah.
Make them out of bricks,
Yeah.
make them out of stone.
Let me give you a definition. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Larry.
You know, you out in California, you got these things called earthquakes.
Yes.
So they're going to build their foundation differently than we build our foundation.
Yeah. Say a little more about that.
Everything sways. It's exciting.
But it's still the bottom line, right? And it has the capacity. But the foundation is still the foundation, but it has the capacity to move.
It has the capacity to weather the storm.
Weather the storm. I like that. Capacity to weather the storm. Dr. Ron?
But the only reason Manhattan can handle all the buildings that are there is it's solid granite.
Wow. The
Below it.
only way that Manhattan, you're saying, they could build all that they've done is because it's on solid granite. You go there, you're thinking, why isn't this in the middle of the earth? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So, Josh, you want to say something real quick?
So actually, this last year ASP, we had to build an accessibility ramp
Yeah.
for a disabled, for a woman. Their ramp was not so I'm doing so good. So we had to use cornerstone mason block that was local.
So you built a ramp for somebody that was disabled, and you had to build a foundation that was made of really good stone, is that what I'm hearing you say, to sustain somebody so injury would not occur. Yeah, that's good. So look at this definition. It plays into what you just said, Josh. Let me just read it to you. This so you have it. It's kind of what you guys have said. We'll keep going there. Definition of a good foundation, get this. It's the load-bearing portion of a structure. How many of you go through life thinking it's my weight to bear? I think part of what David's saying, you know what? Not really. God is your foundation. If you allow Him, God can help bear the weight, right? Typically below ground. It's able to support the weight resting on it and withstand what may come against it. It also acts as a barrier to keep out destructive things like water, gas, or vapor. That's pretty intense, isn't it? We're going to leave that up there in case you guys want to copy it. But, I don't know about you, but, when I look at a building, I rarely give thought when I look at a house or a building, but without it, it wouldn't exist. It just wouldn't exist. And it takes the longest time to secure, right? I mean, you think about this. How much time do you spend on stuff that isn't real, so to speak, it's not real flashy, it's not real, like, let's just stop and look at that. It's kind of uneventful, and then you spend months doing that, and then all of a sudden you drive by one day and it's like, oh my gosh, they just built a house. Like, how the heck did that happen? And you spend a lot of time going deep, and you almost don't even notice it because it takes so much effort, but then eventually you do see the outcome of going deep, And it actually is standing on something that matters because everything has a foundation. So think about this in terms of our lives. You know, we've talked about this a million times, and I'm going to, particularly for the new guys, we need to indoctrinate them into an illustration here. Yeah, there we go. It only is a matter of time. And I just want to tell you how much this plays. For those of you that are new, this is actually an iceberg, and not a great one, but it is. Yeah. I would say this. Most people, we live our life, we live trying to impress with the 10 to 15%, meaning what everybody can see. We're really visible, and we think life's about this. It's about what I can show people. You know, how I'm on the ladder of the scorecard, whatever it is, that the real measure's up here. This could not be more against the grain of wisdom. Because the reality is what happens up here doesn't stay up here. I'm reversing the illustration a little bit. It actually impacts us down here, doesn't it? And if this thing is anchored in the wrong place, when this starts to shake up here, this thing can fall apart. This is why Jesus even said, and if this falls apart, then it also goes back and it acts out in ways that people actually see. So here's the thing. People look really, really good and things are going fine, and all of a sudden something shakes up here. And it exposes this down here. And then this really begins to act out up here. Does that make sense? Think of this, what I mean by this is at some point life is going to expose really what our hearts take comfort in, what our hearts take strength in, what our hearts hope in, and even what our hearts love the most. I'll give you a couple quick illustrations. This last week I was in Florida at a conference, and on Monday I got there, and I got a text from my son. He said, "Dad, did you hear about Art Taguting?" Some of you may or may not know Art. I don't know. Art went here for a while, and professor at Towson for a while, and at Stevenson. He goes in the bathroom at his house and never comes out. Art died suddenly like that. Heart attack. His wife went in, tried to bring him back, and it's really interesting, though, what's happened with the family. Do you think that's shocking? It's up here, right? But it's exposing here. It's interesting. Art was a man who lived in the rock, based his life on the rock. God had turned his life around. He'd been making all his financial decisions about this. In fact, his wife said, it's kind of crazy how things go. It's almost like the last 2 years. He didn't know, we didn't know, but he's done some stuff financially the last 2 years that kind of is prepared for this moment based on this. And it was sad, and some brothers went over and they prayed with him, but there was just a great sense in how this man had lived his life at a deep level, that as sad as this was that he was gone, it was not hopeless because they lived upon a rock who had another word. That this isn't all there is. So where do you go when you're really tempted? How do you deal with your anxiety? What do you do when you have loss? I told you guys that we almost lost our second daughter a while ago. I mean, when she was 18, I mentioned this to you all, and I'll never forget this. This has been a year of loss for the Goodman household. And I'll be really honest with you. Our oldest daughter has been through a very difficult time in her marriage. She has 4 little boys. And they're doing a great job in a hard place. But it's been really hard. My son, Josh, they lost their second baby in 3 years, 5 months into the pregnancy, their first little son. Another grandson, James. My mom died. Had a chance to get there before they even took her out of her bed. I just happened to be in Ocean City where she was living when I got the call. I could mention a couple others. And so life has a way of saying, okay, like, how do you bring understanding to that, right? Because I can't change that. But this exposes this. And this, the heart isn't meant to rest on just anything. because anything isn't worthy of my deepest affection and loyalty. It will shake. But God is my what? Rock. Even when it doesn't feel that way. Because not everything is worthy of our trust and affection. See, this is why Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6 says this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not in your own understanding. This is crazy. It says, in all your ways, acknowledge the Lord. And get this, and He will make straight your path. You may not see it today, but He will. And then it says this. This is the greatest next verse that nobody says. It says, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, shun evil. For this will add health to your body and nourishment to your bones. I mean, how many times have we, in an effort to find a little comfort, a little approval, a little relief, have done something that really hasn't been healthy to our body or nourishing to our bones? But it was relief, but it wasn't a rock. Bob?
So, it may seem contrite, but isn't sin the force that erodes our foundation?
Say a little more about that.
You know, sometimes it's either giving in or thinking or doing an action that perhaps, I think God lays a foundation for us that's as strong as He can. It's immovable, but we present situations or decide to act on things that start to cause the foundation to crack a little bit. And, you know, since we do have free will, in the sense that God allows us that either we continue to allow those forces to erode our foundation until, in my case, basically I was held up by probably one 2x4 that was rotting on one corner, and then found my faith and slowly began to build a foundation back to where God initially set it. But, you know, I look back and, you know, the young man earlier said that, you know, some of our happiest times come out of our most pain and misery. Yeah, that's only true after we come out the other side. You know, then we can look back and say, through faith and through trust and through submission and through humility, are we able to say, wow, I am better as a result.
Yeah, so the question I'm asking myself to consider, and all of us to consider, like, where really is the foundation? Because not everything's worthy of our trust. And I do think you're right that the ultimate question I'm asking is, where's my deepest affection? Like, what is this thing resting on? Is it movable or not movable? I mean, here's what I know. We can be tempted, can we not, to rest our lives on temporary things that give a false sense of stability. I mean, maybe I get a little more money, I feel really secure until things go. Look, here's what I know. Like, do you guys ever think the stock market could ever blow up again? I mean, it's blowing up good now, but it could blow up bad. I mean, none of us know that, right? I mean, here's what I know. I don't even have that much, but I know back in 2008, whatever I had in a 401k, it went like in half. I went like, what? I didn't have that much. Now I really don't have very much. It was like in half. And if I'm like, and I can be going, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen when I'm 65 or 85 or whatever, if I even get to live that long, what? And I freak over it and I do all this stuff. I can say, hey, wait a minute. The Lord is my refuge. God is my strength. He cares about my life. I can only do what I can do. I only get one 24-hour period of time a day. That's it. I just live today. I live tomorrow. We try to find a lot of things to kind of give me a little control, a little security. I don't care what it could be drinking, it could be this, it could be that, it could be approval, it could be trying to compete with the guy next door, it could be pornography. I don't know what it is. All I'm telling you is this. It moves. Every summer we go to Vermont, and when our grandkids come, if they're there, I've started the last 2 or 3 years, and I right now, in fact, I'm even keeping a list of ideas for this summer. To get together. We really call it like a goodie moment. And so I get them all together, and they're in ages from like 2 to 13. So it's a pretty big spread to figure out what's something we could do to make a deposit spiritually into their lives to give them concepts, right? You guys with me? I'll publish this. You guys can buy it from me. It'd be great. No, I'm teasing. So we've done things like this. So one time we're at this gorgeous house we get to just use with some friends. So I took them into this little ski room, closed the door. And, I mean, it is pitch black in this room. And all of a sudden they all start screaming and, you know, we flick on a light and go, okay, it's okay. We're all here. So I turn the light out. It's dark and I light a match. And all of a sudden it goes from chaos to calm. Because they see what? The light. So we have a little thing. Hold on, Alex. And then I eventually turn on the light again and say, hey, let's talk about this. Like, what'd you guys feel when the darkness? And you know, they're listening. I was scared, Goody. I thought that Luke was going to hit me. I didn't know what to do. Like, I thought you might have left and all of that. And I said, what'd you do? What'd you feel when I turned on the light? They go, I could see you. I felt good. I knew we were going to be okay and all that. And I said, you know, here's what Jesus said. That light is coming to the world. And that He actually is the light of the world, and He comes into darkness to expose things. So we have this neat little lesson around exposure and light and beauty. So one day there's this huge rock out in this yard, and I got them all on the rock. I said, hey, tell me, you guys, what you know about the rock. And one goes, it's big. I go, yeah, it's big. And they go, Goody, it's hard. I go, yeah, it's hard. I go, what else do you know about it? They go, well, it can hold all of us. I go, yeah. I said, you think you can move it? Can't move it. So we just talk. These are little kids. And I said, the Lord, get this, Psalm 46. The Lord is our refuge and strength, our ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear though the earth give way, the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. And we just began to talk about this, where that God, from the other Psalm 18, God is our rock, and that He is someone, as you guys get older, and I know you're going to need to learn this again and again, but you're going to need something that doesn't shift, that doesn't move. Then when everything else is confusing, you can say, I'm just going to trust, and I'm going to stand right here. Yeah, Alex.
In Matthew 7, 24 through 27, the wise and the foolish builders.
Yes.
May I read that?
Yeah, but we read that about the where the winds blow and the rains come. Yeah, the one that we just read a little while ago. You want to read it again?
I'm sorry.
Okay, great.
That's cool, but when you really look at that, it's he who builds foolish lives foolishly.
Yes. So here's what I know. In a room this size, some of you are probably going through some stuff right now. I don't think that would be a misstep on my part to say that. That you might say that the house of your life is maybe it's shaking a little bit. And it could be anything. I mean, I know men in this room who've had losses this last year. You didn't expect it. I know guys in this room whose marriages right now, you're dealing with some stuff. And you have. And it's not over yet. I know that there's probably some concerns that we have. Maybe some of you are on the verge of losing a job, or you've been unemployed for a while, or your finances are about as tight as it can get. Or maybe you got a kid that you're concerned about. We got guys in this room young enough to wonder about their future. Am I going to get into college? Where am I going to go to college? When am I going to, you know, we go on and on and on and on. A lot of us want to look at them like, don't worry about that. Like, we did. You know what I mean? Like, we all have these things. Some of us have health concerns. Some of us have been through some stuff. Some of us in this room are getting at an age where, like, you know what? Every doctor's appointment, if I get through it okay, it's like, man, thank God, because I know those things are, the okay appointments are starting to run out. You know? Like, you're just like, dang. But here's what I'm telling you, man. Life presses the point, doesn't it? And I just want to say to all of us that there is one who is worthy, who is the immovable rock, who is the Lord. Hebrews 13:8 says this, that this one, Jesus Christ, this Hebrew rabbi in Israel, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's the same. Meaning this, everything else in life can move and shake and change. But sometimes you can say, Lord, I'm going to stand on you. And I may not understand anything else but you. So here's what we're going to do. These next 2 weeks, after this, we're going to talk about temptation. 2 weeks on it. How come so much? Because there's a lot. And I want to encourage you, it's not just about sexual temptation. We're going to talk about all temptations and big thing, but we're going to bring it back to how do we stand in this place and deal with that. There's questions out here from each week, except week 7's not on there. If you want to prepare for the weeks coming up, there's a whole set of questions. You can just maybe spend 20, 30 minutes a week just looking at these questions. It'll prepare you for the week coming up, what we're going to do. We're going to have a great time together. But here's what I want to do. I want to play a song by a guy named James Ward. It's an old hymn that he's kind of changed. It's called Rock of Ages. And I love it. And we're playing it because, honestly, I like it a lot. But it's a beautiful song. And I just want to invite you to close your eyes because when it's over, what I want to do, I want to give you just a few minutes to reflect on some stuff. We'll play some more light music and then I want to pray for us because I really know this. If you're not at a place right now where maybe you're in the midst of something and you're trying to say, okay, what's the bottom line? Where am I standing? If you're not there now, thank God. But I just want to encourage you, you will be at some point. And life will ask you again, where are you standing, Mike? Bob, where's your hope? Jack? Matt? Don't move, because you'll be tempted. I'm telling you, there's other things. Just come over here for a little bit. This will help. And all of a sudden you find yourself, that didn't help. That just flipping made it worse. But just enjoy this. Be blessed. And let maybe these words wash over you. And then I'll introduce this little few moments and we'll be done in plenty of time. I have a couple quick announcements that are very important before we leave. So Paul, can we do that?
Of ages left for me, let me hide myself in thee. Let the water and the blood from thy wounded side which flow be of sin the double cure. Cleanse me from its guilt and power. Not the labors of my hands can fulfill thy law's demands. Could my zeal no respite know? Could my tears forever flow? All for sin could not atone. Thou must save, and thou alone. Nothing in my hand I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. Naked come to thee for dress, helpless I look to thee for foul I to the fountain fly. Watch me, Savior, or I die. While I draw this fleeting breath, when my eyelids close in death, when I soar to worlds unknown, see thee on thy judgment throne, Rock of Ages, cleft for me. Let me hide myself in thee.
So here's what I'd like to do. We're going to play just some light music for just a couple minutes. And I want to just invite you during that time to just be quiet. And maybe right now you're at a place where you just need to reaffirm that you want to stand on the rock. The best way that you know how, say, Lord, you know where I'm at. I don't see the way forward. I don't know all that is going to happen, but God, I'm going to trust you. That you're a worthy foundation, immovable, that you see what I don't see. And that God, no matter what else, that I'm not alone. And that, Lord, I want to stand on the immovable reality, the unchanging reality, which is you and your love. But you will never leave me or forsake me. That no matter what, I want to decide right now that my life is going to stand. That when the wind and the waves and the storms of life come, that the one thing I don't want to have up for grabs is where I'm standing. Take some time and just pour out your heart to the Lord. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for these men. I want to thank you for each brother tonight, wherever we may be. You know our hearts. Father, you know that I'm prone to wander, and I don't think I'm the only one. But Father, we want to declare again tonight that you are our rock, that you are the immovable reality of life. The immovable reality of life. And I pray, Lord, that as we tarry this journey until we would meet you face to face, and until that day where you will make all things new, that might it be said that in our hearts we are standing on the rock. And I pray for any brother tonight that feels a sense of loneliness or despair or hopelessness, that they would not leave this room feeling that some way, somehow, through a touch, a conversation, or maybe what you've given tonight would be a word of encouragement to their soul. Thank you, God, that you are the reality above all realities. And for that we all say, amen. 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 You okay? Just a couple quick things. Some of you know it snows around here. If that happens, here's our snow policy for at least Monday evening. If the building is open, we will meet. You can use your discretion, but they usually make a decision by around 3 in the afternoon. So all you need to do is call, and it should be on the voice. Is that kind of right, Jim? We kind of will do that, yeah. And we'll try to get some even up on the men's website, but just know if the building is closed, we will not meet, all right? Thursday mornings, if schools are late or closed, we don't meet. But just here, if the building's closed, if it's open, we're going to go for it, all right? That's good. That's really, really important. Next week, we are going to meet, all right? It's a holiday, and I hope that we will definitely celebrate MLK Day. It's huge. But what we didn't want to do is meet tonight, not meet next week, and then try to meet again, because there's guys who are going to come next week that wouldn't get that message too, and they'd show up, and bingo. So I will open the building. We'll be here, all right? Next week, we are going to meet, all right? And if you can't make it, we get it, but we're going to be here. And on the table, there's some handouts. Like I said, there's questions there. If, in fact, you want one for each week to see what we're going to do. And at some point during the session, if you've got $10 you can throw in the basket. That just helps make sure we have some goodies and stuff for you guys. I think that basket's over there right now. If you have it, if not, no sweat. Still want you to come. And finally, we've got one of these neat looking little cards out here. This is a little passage we're going to try to work on. And the way we do that is you take one of these and you keep it someplace. You just look over and read it. And then every week when we end, we all stand and we read this together. And you know, before you long, you might even get it in your head. It's called, you might even memorize it. And driving down the road, you might come over it. It might really help change your life a little bit. You can ponder these things. It's huge. And so we're going to stand and do that. Here's some other great news. You want to hear some? We're going to leave the room just like it is. Yeah. So here's what I'd love you to do. Stand, and when we leave, if you could just make your table look nice with the chairs around it. And then I'll take the name tags off each name if you could bring them up here. But let's do our verse together. If you've got one. If not, get one. All right? Or read off with somebody else. And this will be our last word. This will be our amen. Go LSU. Amen. Isaiah 41:10. Here we go. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Amen. So as we look ahead to next week, we're going to spend some time for the next couple of weeks talking about this pretty significant word, temptation. I'd love to just know, during this week, give some thought to this. What comes to mind when you first think of the word temptation? And then spend some time in Genesis chapter 1, 2, and 3, specifically chapter 3, at least the first 10 verses, and take a look at what is at the root of temptation. And finally, what has to go on internally before we're ever really pulled in a direction externally? Give some thought to that this week. I think it'll be a challenge for you.